The blood on her hands had long since dried to a rust-brown crust, but Lily Townsend could still feel its warmth as if the life had just drained away moments ago, instead of 4 days past. She stumbled through the dusty streets of Fort Worth, Texas, her green eyes darting from shadow to shadow, seeing threats in every doorway and danger behind every weathered face that passed her by. The summer heat of 1878 beat down mercilessly on the bustling cattle town, but Lily felt only cold, a bone-deep chill that no amount of sunshine could penetrate. Her body screamed for rest, her mind played tricks on her exhausted senses, and every time she even thought about closing her eyes, she saw him again, her brother's business partner, standing over Samuel's body with that knife still dripping red. Fort Worth had grown rapidly in recent years, the railroad bringing prosperity and people in equal measure. Cattle drives came through regularly, filling the streets with cowboys and drovers, saloons with laughter and piano music, and the air with dust and possibility. But for Lily, this town that had once felt like home now seemed full of hidden dangers. She had witnessed a murder, and the killer knew she had seen everything. Marshall Crawford had dismissed her claims, said she was hysterical, a woman overcome with grief who did not know what she had seen. But Lily knew. She knew with absolute certainty that Jacob Mathers had murdered her brother for the deed to their freight business, and she knew that Jacob would not rest until she was silenced permanently. She had been moving from place to place since that terrible night, never staying anywhere long enough to truly rest. The boarding house had felt too exposed, the hotel too obvious. She had even tried sleeping in the livery stable, but every creak and rustle had her jolting awake, heart hammering, convinced that Jacob had found her. Now, as the sun began its descent toward the horizon on this 4th day without sleep, Lily could feel her body starting to fail. Her legs trembled with each step, her vision blurred at the edges. She had to find somewhere safe, but where could safety exist when the law would not help her, and the killer had money and influence on his side? Owen Quincy had been in Fort Worth for exactly 3 hours when he first saw the woman stumbling past the saloon where he had stopped for a drink. Something about her caught his attention immediately, not just her beauty, though even disheveled and exhausted she was striking, but the look in her eyes. He had seen that look before, during the war and in its aftermath. It was the expression of someone who had seen death up close and personal, someone running on nothing but fear and willpower. Owen set his whiskey down untouched and moved to the saloon's dusty window, watching as she swayed on her feet, caught herself against a post, and then forced herself to keep moving. At 26 years old, Owen had already lived several lifetimes' worth of experience. He had fought in the war as a teenager, worked cattle drives from Texas to Kansas, hired his gun out when times were lean, and generally made his way through the world with a combination of skill, stubbornness, and an unwavering personal code. He stood just over 6 feet tall, with dark hair that tended toward unruly, blue eyes that missed very little, and the weathered tan of a man who spent most of his life outdoors. He had come to Fort Worth looking for work, possibly as a ranch hand or trail boss, but something told him his plans were about to change. Owen pushed through the saloon doors and followed the woman at a discreet distance. She moved like someone in a waking nightmare, checking behind her constantly, flinching at sudden noises, barely aware of where she was going. When she finally stopped in an alley between the general store and a lawyer's office, Owen saw her legs give out. She caught herself against the wall, but it was clear she could not go much further. He approached slowly, making sure his boots made noise on the hard, packed earth so he would not startle her. "Madam," he said quietly, keeping his distance and his hands visible. You look like you could use some help." Lily's head snapped up, and Owen found himself looking into eyes that were equal parts terrified and defiant. "Stay back," she said, her voice hoarse from dehydration and exhaustion. "I do not need help. I am fine." "With all due respect, madam, you do not look fine. You look like you have not slept or eaten in days." Owen took off his hat, a gesture of respect and non-threat. "My name is Owen Quincy. I just rode into town, which means I have got no stake in whatever trouble you are running from. But I can see you are in trouble, and I have got a policy about not walking away from folks who need help." "You cannot help me," Lily said, but her voice broke on the words. "No one can. The marshal will not listen, and the man who wants me dead has half this town in his pocket." Owen's expression hardened. "Someone killed a person you care about, and now they are after you too?" Lily stared at him, trying to determine if she could trust this stranger. Her exhausted mind struggled to process anything beyond the immediate need to keep moving, keep hiding, stay alive. But her body had reached its limit. She could feel consciousness starting to slip away from her, gray fog creeping in at the edges of her vision. "My brother," she whispered. "Samuel. They killed my brother, and I saw who did it." That was when her legs finally gave out completely. Owen moved fast, catching her before she hit the ground. She weighed almost nothing, and up close he could see the dark circles under her eyes, the pallor of her skin, the way her whole body trembled. "When did you last sleep?" he asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. 4 days, Lily managed, fighting against the darkness that wanted to claim her. "Cannot sleep, not safe, he will find me." Owen made a decision in that moment that would change the course of both their lives. "I am going to help you," he said firmly. "I am going to take you somewhere safe, and I am going to stand guard while you rest. No one is going to hurt you, madam. You have my word on that." "You do not understand," Lily said, but she was too exhausted to fight as Owen lifted her easily in his arms. "Jacob Mathers, rich, powerful. Owns the freight company now. The marshal believes him, not me." "Then the marshal is a fool," Owen said flatly. He carried her out of the alley, his mind already working through the logistics. The boarding houses and hotels were too public, too easy for this Jacob Mathers to find her. He needed somewhere more secure, somewhere he could control access and see threats coming. His eyes fell on the old church at the edge of town. It had been replaced by a newer, larger building closer to the center of Fort Worth, and the original structure now stood mostly abandoned, except for the occasional community gathering. More importantly, it had good sightlines and only a few approaches to watch. Lily was barely conscious by the time Owen kicked open the church door. Inside, the space was dusty but dry, with old pews still arranged in neat rows and a small office area at the back that would have belonged to the preacher. Owen carried her to the office, where he found an old settee covered in dust. He set her down gently, then quickly stripped off his riding coat to cover her. She was already asleep, her body finally surrendering to the exhaustion that had been building for 4 days. For a moment, Owen just stood there, looking down at this woman he had met mere minutes ago. She was beautiful, even in her current state, dark blonde hair that had come loose from its pins, delicate features, a scattering of freckles across her nose. But it was more than her appearance that drew him. There was something about her courage, the way she had kept going despite her terror and exhaustion, that called to something deep in his chest. He shook his head at his own foolishness. He did not even know her name, and here he was pledging to protect her against unknown enemies in a town where he had no allies or resources. But Owen Quincy had never been accused of being overly practical, and his sense of honor would not let him walk away from someone in need. He checked his Colt revolver, making sure it was loaded and ready, then positioned himself by the window where he could watch the approaches to the church. The sun was setting now, painting the Texas sky in shades of orange and gold. It was going to be a long night, but Owen had stood watch plenty of times before. He settled in, his eyes scanning the darkening streets, while behind him Lily slept the deep, dreamless sleep of the truly exhausted. Hours passed. Fort Worth settled into its evening rhythm, piano music drifting from the saloons, occasional shouts and laughter, the sound of horses being led to stables for the night. Owen remained alert, his gaze constantly moving, watching for anyone who might be searching for a lone woman. Around midnight he heard Lily cry out in her sleep, a sound of pure anguish. He turned to see her thrashing on the settee, clearly caught in a nightmare. Owen moved to her side, uncertain what to do. He had limited experience with women, having spent most of his adult life in the company of men soldiers, cowboys, drifters. "Hey," he said softly, touching her shoulder gently. "You are safe. Wake up now, just a bad dream." Lily's eyes flew open, and for a moment she looked at him with complete incomprehension. Then memory came flooding back, and with it, tears. "Samuel," she sobbed. "I saw him die. I could not stop it. I could not help him." "Tell me what happened," Owen said, sitting on the edge of the settee. "Start from the beginning." It took Lily several minutes to compose herself enough to speak, but once she started, the words came pouring out. She told him about her brother Samuel, 5 years older than her 22 years, who had built a successful freight business hauling goods between Fort Worth and the smaller towns to the west. Samuel had taken on a partner 2 years ago, a man named Jacob Mathers, who had money to invest in expanding the operation. At first, everything had gone well. Business boomed. They added more wagons, hired more drivers, secured contracts with major merchants. But then Samuel had discovered that Jacob was using their freight wagons to smuggle illegal goods, stolen merchandise, contraband weapons, items that respectable businesses would never touch. Samuel had confronted his partner, told him he wanted out, wanted to sell his half of the business and walk away. Jacob had agreed, or seemed to. They were supposed to meet to sign the papers transferring Samuel's share. Lily had gone along that night 4 days ago because Samuel wanted a witness to the transaction, someone to verify that everything was handled properly. "We went to the freight office after dark, when no one else would be there," Lily said, her voice hollow with remembered horror. Jacob was already there, waiting. He had the papers laid out on the desk. Samuel was reading through them, making sure everything was in order. I was standing by the door, and then Jacob just pulled out a knife and stabbed him, just like that. No warning. No argument. Samuel looked so surprised. He reached for me and I tried to get to him, but Jacob was in the way. Samuel fell, and there was so much blood, and Jacob just stood there watching him die. Owen's jaw tightened with anger. "What happened next?" "I ran," Lily said, shame coloring her voice. "I should have stayed with Samuel, but Jacob came toward me and I just ran. I went straight to Marshal Crawford, told him everything. But when we got back to the freight office with 2 deputies, Samuel's body was gone. The floor was clean. There was no blood, no sign that anything had happened. Jacob was there, calm as could be, acting confused about why we were accusing him. He said Samuel had left hours earlier, said he did not know where his partner had gone. The marshal asked if I was certain about what I had seen, suggested I might have been mistaken, but I knew. I knew what I had witnessed. The marshal did not believe you, Owen said, statement rather than question. Jacob has money and influence. I am just a woman with no husband, no male relatives to speak for me now that Samuel is gone. The marshal said I was distraught, that I had misunderstood what I saw. He implied I might be unstable with grief. Lily's hands clenched into fists. But the next day, I saw Jacob watching my boarding house, and then one of his men tried to corner me in the general store. They are hunting me, Mr. Quincy. They want to make sure I cannot tell anyone the truth. Owen was silent for a long moment, processing everything she had told him. Where are your parents, other family? Dead. Cholera took them 6 years ago, right after we settled in Fort Worth. It was just Samuel and me after that. He took care of me, made sure I had everything I needed, and now he is gone and I am alone. Fresh tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. I do not even know where they put his body. He deserves a proper burial, but I cannot find him and no one will help me look. I will help you, Owen said, the words coming out with quiet certainty. I will help you find your brother and I will help you prove what Jacob Mathers did. But right now you need to rest. When did you last eat? Lily had to think about it. Yesterday morning, I think. Some bread I bought from the bakery. Owen stood, checking the window again before turning back to her. I saw a restaurant still open a few streets over. I am going to go get you some food. I will lock the door behind me and I will be back in 15 minutes. Can you stay awake until then? I think so, Lily said, though her eyelids were already drooping again. Mr. Quincy, why are you doing this? You do not know me. This is not your fight. Owen paused in the doorway, considering the question. When I was 18 years old, I watched my younger sister die because I could not protect her. Fever took her. Nothing I could have done about that, but it taught me that life is fragile and time is precious. I swore then that if I ever had the chance to help someone who needed it, I would not hesitate. Besides, he added with a slight smile, I never did like bullies, and it sounds like Jacob Mathers is about the worst kind there is. He left before Lily could respond, moving quickly through the darkened streets of Fort Worth. The restaurant was still serving late customers, mostly cowboys fresh off the trail with money burning holes in their pockets. Owen ordered beef stew, fresh bread and coffee, paying extra to have it packaged up to take with him. The whole time, his mind was working through the problem of Jacob Mathers. A rich man with influence was a dangerous enemy, especially one who had already committed murder and gotten away with it. But Owen had faced dangerous enemies before, and he had learned that money and power could be overcome with the right strategy and enough determination. When he returned to the church, he found Lily exactly where he had left her, though she was fighting hard to keep her eyes open. Owen set out the food and she ate mechanically, barely tasting anything but needing the sustenance. The coffee helped revive her slightly, bringing a bit of color back to her pale cheeks. I need you to tell me everything you know about Jacob Mathers, Owen said once she had eaten her fill. His habits, his associates, his weaknesses. If we are going to bring him down, we need to know exactly what we are dealing with. Lily nodded slowly, organizing her exhausted thoughts. Jacob came to Fort Worth about 3 years ago from back east, Philadelphia, I think. Samuel said he had family money, investments in various businesses. He is about 40 years old, never married. He lives in the finest house in town, employs several men as drivers and warehouse workers. People respect him because he donates to the church and sponsors community events. But Samuel said he always felt there was something wrong about Jacob, something that did not quite add up about his past. Did Samuel ever try to find out more about where Jacob came from? Owen asked. He wrote some letters back east, trying to verify Jacob's background. But he never got any responses, or if he did not tell me about them. This was just in the last few weeks, after he discovered the smuggling operation. Samuel kept saying he had made a terrible mistake taking Jacob on as a partner, that he had let greed blind him to warning signs. Owen filed that information away. What about the smuggling? What kind of goods was Jacob moving? I do not know all the details. Samuel would not tell me too much because he wanted to protect me. but I heard him mention stolen merchandise from trains and stage coaches, goods that would be fenced through his freight network. He also said something about guns going to outlaw gangs. That was what finally pushed Samuel to end the partnership he could not live with being part of arming criminals. "Noble of him," Owen said, and meant it. "Most men would have looked the other way if the money was good enough." "Samuel was a good man," Lily said, her voice breaking. "He deserved better than to be murdered by someone he trusted." Owen reached out and took her hand, a gesture of comfort. "We will make this right. I promise you that. But right now you need to sleep. Real sleep. I will keep watch. No one is getting past me." Lily looked at him, this stranger who had appeared in her darkest hour like an answer to an unspoken prayer. "I do not even know why you are in Fort Worth, what you were doing before you found me. Looking for work, same as half the men in this town, but I suspect I just found a different kind of job than I was expecting." Owen squeezed her hand gently, then released it. "Sleep now. We will figure out the next steps in the morning." This time, when Lily's eyes closed, she let herself sink into true rest. Some part of her subconscious recognized that she was safe, that this man with the steady blue eyes and quiet strength would keep his word. She slept deeply, without dreams, her body finally getting the restoration it desperately needed. Owen kept his vigil through the long night. He watched the moon arc across the sky, listened to the sounds of Fort Worth settling into sleep, and thought about the situation he had gotten himself into. Logic said he should walk away, that this was not his problem, and getting involved with a murder and a powerful enemy in a strange town was asking for trouble. But Owen had never been particularly good at listening to logic when his conscience was telling him something different. This woman Lily, he reminded himself, though she had not actually told him her name. He had heard her mention Samuel calling her Lily in her sleep needed help, and he was in a position to provide it. That was all the reason he needed. As dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, Owen heard the sound of boots on the church steps. He was instantly alert, his hand on his gun, positioning himself between the door and where Lily slept. The door creaked open, and a man stepped inside, middle-aged, wearing a preacher's collar, carrying a Bible. He stopped short when he saw Owen standing there with his hand on his weapon. "I am sorry," the preacher said, holding up his free hand in a gesture of peace. "I did not realize anyone was here. I am Reverend Thomas. I come by sometimes to check on the old church, make sure everything is in order." Owen relaxed slightly, but did not move away from his protective position. "Name is Owen Quincy. I apologize for using your church without permission, Reverend. We needed a safe place, and this seemed fitting." Reverend Thomas's gaze moved past Owen to where Lily slept on the old settee. His expression changed from surprise to concern. "Is that young Miss Townsend? Good Lord, the whole town has been worried about her. No one has seen her in days. There are rumors that she has lost her mind with grief over her brother's disappearance." "Her brother did not disappear," Owen said bluntly. "He was murdered. Miss Townsend witnessed it. Now the killer wants her silenced, and the marshal will not help her." The Reverend's eyes widened. "That is a serious accusation, Mr. Quincy." "It is a serious crime, Reverend. Miss Townsend has not slept in 4 days because she has been running for her life. I found her about to collapse in an alley yesterday evening. She needs help, and it seems like I am the only one willing to provide it." Reverend Thomas moved closer, looking down at Lily's sleeping form with genuine compassion. "I knew Samuel Townsend. He was a good man, honest in his dealings. When he stopped coming to services a few weeks ago, I meant to visit him, but my duties kept me busy. And then word came that he had simply left town without warning. It did not sit right with me, but I had no reason to question it." "Well, now you do," Owen said. The question is, are you going to help us, or are you going to go running to the marshal? The Reverend was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with his conscience. Who does Miss Townsend accuse of this murder? Jacob Mathers. Reverend Thomas closed his eyes, looking pained. Jacob has been a generous supporter of the church. He has helped fund repairs to the new building, contributed to our charity programs for widows and orphans. Guilty men often hide behind good deeds, Owen observed. It is an effective disguise. I cannot simply take her word against his, Mr. Quincy. Jacob Mathers is a respected member of this community. And Lily Townsend is a young woman who watched her brother be murdered, Owen said, his voice hardening. She has no reason to lie. What does she gain from making this up? Her brother is dead either way. The freight business is gone. She has nothing, but she knows the truth, and she is willing to stand by it even though it has made her a target. The Reverend opened his eyes, studying Owen carefully. You seem very committed to helping her, for a man who I assume just met her. Because it is the right thing to do, Owen said simply. And because no one else is stepping up. Before Reverend Thomas could respond, Lily stirred on the settee, her eyes opening slowly. For a moment she looked peaceful, refreshed by the first real sleep she had gotten in days. Then awareness returned, and with it the tension and fear. She sat up quickly, seeing the Reverend standing there with Owen. Reverend Thomas, she said, her voice wary, are you here to help or to turn me into the marshal? I am here to understand what is happening, Miss Townsend, the Reverend said gently. Mr. Quincy tells me you witnessed your brother's murder. Is this true? Lily stood, Owen's coat falling from her shoulders. Despite her disheveled appearance, there was dignity in the way she held herself. Yes, Reverend. Jacob Mathers killed Samuel 4 days ago, stabbed him to death right in front of me at the freight office. I watched my brother die, and then I ran for my life. I told Marshal Crawford everything, but when we went back to the office, Jacob had already cleaned up the evidence and hidden Samuel's body. The marshal did not believe me. He thought I was hysterical or confused, but I know what I saw. These are grave accusations, Reverend Thomas said slowly. Jacob will not take kindly to having his reputation attacked. Jacob is a murderer, Lily said flatly. I do not care about his feelings. I care about justice for my brother and about staying alive long enough to see Jacob pay for what he did. The Reverend looked between Lily and Owen, seeming to come to some internal decision. I will not turn you in, Miss Townsend, but I cannot openly support accusations against Jacob without proof. That said, you may continue to shelter here in the old church as long as you need. I will tell anyone who asks that the building is being aired out and prepared for storage. That should keep curious eyes away. It was not the strong endorsement Owen had hoped for, but it was better than nothing. Thank you, Reverend. Your discretion is appreciated. After Reverend Thomas left, promising to return later with some food and supplies, Owen turned to Lily. How are you feeling? Better, she admitted. Still exhausted, but the sleep helped. I can actually think clearly again. She looked at him with something like wonder in her green eyes. You really did keep watch all night, said I would, Owen replied. I do not make promises I cannot keep. I cannot ask you to keep doing this, to put yourself in danger for me. You are not asking, I am offering. There is a difference. Owen moved to the window, checking the street outside. We need a plan. We cannot just hide here indefinitely. Jacob will not stop looking for you, and eventually someone will figure out where you are. Lily joined him at the window, standing close enough that he could smell lavender in her hair despite her days of flight. We need proof. We need Samuel's body. If we can find where Jacob hid him, the evidence of how he died will speak for itself. That is assuming Jacob did not dispose of the body completely, Owen said, hating to be blunt but needing to be realistic. He did not have time, Lily said with certainty. I went straight to the marshal after I ran. It was maybe 20 minutes before we returned to the freight office with the deputies. Jacob had cleaned up the blood and hidden Samuel, but he could not have taken the body far in that amount of time. It has to be somewhere on the freight company property. Owen considered this. That gives us a place to start, but we cannot just walk into the freight yard in broad daylight. Jacob will have men watching for you. Then we go at night, search the property when everyone is gone. Lily looked up at him, determination replacing the fear in her eyes. I know the layout. Samuel showed me around the business many times. There are warehouses, storage sheds, the main office. If Jacob hid Samuel quickly, it would be somewhere close, somewhere he could access easily. You are talking about breaking into private property to search for a body that may or may not be there, Owen pointed out. If we are caught, the marshal will throw us in jail, and Jacob will have free rein to finish what he started. You have a better idea, Lily challenged. Owen thought about it, then shook his head. No, but we need to be smart about this. We scout the location today, watch the patterns of who comes and goes. Tonight, when we have the best chance of going undetected, we search. If we find your brother, we bring witnesses, people Jacob cannot intimidate or buy off. We make enough noise that the marshal has no choice but to investigate properly. Reverend Thomas would be a good witness, Lily suggested. He may not want to publicly accuse Jacob, but if we present him with evidence, his conscience will not let him ignore it. Agreed. Anyone else in town you trust? Lily thought carefully. Dr. Harrison. He treated Samuel once when he broke his arm in a wagon accident. He is honest, does not care about politics or money. If we can get him to examine Samuel's body, he will report truthfully on the cause of death. Good. So we have a plan forming. Owen felt the familiar focus that came with having a clear objective. First, we need to get you cleaned up and into fresh clothes. You cannot move around town in your current state without drawing attention. Lily looked down at herself, seeing for the first time the state of her dress stained, torn, dusty from 4 days of desperate flight. I have clothes at my boarding house, but I cannot go back there. Mrs. Henderson will ask too many questions, and Jacob might have someone watching. What about friends? Other women who might help? There is Martha Cooper. She runs the dress shop on Main Street. We have known each other since Samuel and I first came to Fort Worth. She is kind, discreet. Lily hesitated. But I do not want to put her in danger. Let me worry about danger, Owen said. You just tell me where to find Mrs. Cooper and what to say to her. I will get you what you need without leading anyone back here. An hour later, Owen was walking into Cooper's dress shop with a story prepared. Martha Cooper turned out to be a woman in her 40s, pleasantly plump with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She listened to Owen's carefully edited explanation that he was helping a friend who had fallen on hard times and needed some proper clothing without the whole town gossiping about it. This friend, Martha said slowly, would she happen to be a young woman with dark blonde hair and green eyes? Owen kept his expression neutral. Why do you ask? Because Lily Townsend has not been seen in days, and I have been worried sick about her. Samuel disappearing was strange enough, but then Lily vanishing too. Something is very wrong, and the marshal does not seem to care. Martha moved closer, lowering her voice. If you are helping Lily, then God bless you. That girl needs a friend. Owen made a quick decision to trust her. She needs more than a friend, madam. She needs protection and a chance to prove the truth about what happened to her brother. Can you help without asking too many questions? Martha's expression hardened with determination. I can do better than that. I can help you both. Wait here. She disappeared into the back of the shop, returning with a bundle of clothing, a practical riding skirt, several blouses, a coat, undergarments, and even a pair of sturdy boots. These should fit Lily. I know her size. And before you ask, no, I will not take money for them. Samuel Townsend helped my husband when we were struggling, gave him work hauling goods when no one else would. I owe that family a debt. Consider this a small payment toward it. Owen accepted the bundle gratefully. You are a good woman, Mrs. Cooper. Thank you. You just keep that girl safe, you hear. And when you are ready to prove what really happened, you come find me. I will stand witness, no matter what Jacob Mathers or anyone else thinks about it. Owen left the dress shop feeling like maybe Lily had more allies in Fort Worth than she realized. The trick would be mobilizing them at the right time, in a way that Jacob could not counter with his money and influence. He took a roundabout route back to the old church, making sure no one was following him, arriving to find Lily pacing nervously in the dusty sanctuary. I was getting worried, she admitted when he came through the door. Sorry, took longer than expected, but I think you will find it was worth the wait. Owen set down the bundle and explained about Martha Cooper's offer of help. Lily's eyes filled with tears of gratitude as she went through the clothing. Martha did this for me, even knowing it could bring her trouble. Some people cannot be bought or scared into silence, Owen said. Your brother must have been a good man to inspire that kind of loyalty. He was the best man I ever knew, Lily said softly. She clutched the clean clothes to her chest. Until I met you, Mr. Quincy. Owen felt heat rise in his face at the compliment. I have not done anything special, just what anyone decent would do. Most men are not decent, Lily said, her tone suggesting bitter experience. Most men would have walked right past me in that alley, or worse, they would have taken advantage of my situation. She looked at him with an expression that made Owen's heart do something complicated in his chest. You are different, special, and I do not know how I will ever repay you for what you are doing. You do not owe me anything, Owen said gruffly, uncomfortable with the depth of emotion in her gaze. Now, why do not you get changed? There is a small room off the back you can use for privacy. Then we should eat something and start planning for tonight. Lily nodded and disappeared into the back room with her new clothes. Owen busied himself with checking his gun and gathering supplies they would need for the night's work: a lantern, matches, rope. His mind kept drifting back to the way Lily had looked at him, the warmth in her voice when she called him special. He barely knew this woman, had met her less than 24 hours ago, but something about her called to him in a way he had never experienced before. It was more than just her beauty or her courage, though both were considerable. It was something in her spirit, the core of strength that kept her fighting even when everything seemed hopeless. Owen had spent most of his adult life alone, drifting from job to job and town to town without putting down roots anywhere. He had told himself he liked it that way, that freedom was more valuable than connection. But now, standing in this dusty old church pledged to protect a woman he barely knew, Owen realized how hollow that freedom had become. For the first time in years, he felt like he had a purpose beyond mere survival. When Lily emerged from the back room, Owen had to forcibly remind himself to breathe. The clean clothes transformed her, and with her hair brushed and pinned neatly, she looked elegant despite the practical nature of the outfit. But more than that, the sleep and food had restored some of her natural vitality. Her green eyes were clearer, her posture straighter. This was Lily Townsend as she was meant to be: strong, capable, beautiful. These fit perfectly, she said, smoothing down the skirt. Please thank Mrs. Cooper for me when you see her next. You can thank her yourself when this is over, Owen said. She made it clear she wants to help any way she can. They spent the rest of the morning planning their approach to the freight yard. Lily drew a rough map from memory, showing Owen the layout of the various buildings and identifying the most likely places where Jacob might have hidden Samuel's body. The main office was too public, too likely to be discovered. The open storage areas the same. But there were two smaller warehouses that were used for goods in transit, and a root cellar beneath the old original office building that Samuel had showed her once. The cellar is mostly forgotten now, Lily explained. They built the new office building 3 years ago when the business expanded, but the old structure is still there. It gets used for overflow storage sometimes, but the cellar itself is just empty space. Cool, dark, out of the way. If I were hiding a body quickly, that is where I would put it. Owen studied the map, committing the layout to memory. We will start there then. What time does the freight yard close? The workers usually leave by 6 in the evening. Jacob sometimes stays later in his office, but not always. We should wait until full dark, maybe 9 or 10 o'clock, to be safe. That left them hours to wait, hours that stretched out with nervous tension. They ate the provisions Reverend Thomas brought by in the afternoon: bread, cheese, dried meat, fresh water. The Reverend also brought news that Jacob Mathers had been around town asking if anyone had seen Lily, offering a reward for information about her whereabouts. He claimed to be worried about her safety, said she had been distraught since her brother's disappearance, and he feared she might harm herself. He is clever, Lily said bitterly after the Reverend left, making himself look like the concerned friend while he hunts me like an animal. Clever men make mistakes too, Owen said, and we are about to exploit one of his. He hid your brother's body instead of disposing of it properly. That was a mistake, and it is going to cost him. As the afternoon wore into evening, Owen found himself studying Lily when she was not looking. He noticed small things: the way she worried at her lower lip when she was thinking, the determined set of her jaw when discussing their plans, the flash of vulnerability when her thoughts turned to her dead brother. She was a complex person, made more interesting by the juxtaposition of her genteel manners and her core of steel. Owen realized he wanted to know everything about her: where she had grown up, what she dreamed about, what made her laugh, what she hoped for her future. You are staring, Lily said without looking up from where she was adjusting the map of the freight yard. Sorry, just thinking. About what? She looked up then, catching his gaze with her own. About how brave you are, Owen said honestly. Most people would have crumbled under what you have been through. But here you are, planning to break into your would-be killer's property to find your brother's body. That takes a special kind of courage. Lily's expression softened. I do not feel brave. I feel terrified. But Samuel deserves justice, and I am the only one who can get it for him. That is more important than my fear. That is what courage is, Owen said. Being afraid and doing what needs doing anyway. They held each other's gaze for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then Lily looked away, color rising in her cheeks. Tell me something about yourself, Mr. Quincy. I feel like I've told you my whole sad story, but I know nothing about you. Not much to tell, Owen said, but he found himself wanting to share with her. Born in Tennessee, raised on a farm. Fought in the war when I was too young to know better. Lost my family afterward, parents to illness, sister to fever. Drifted west looking for something, though I could not tell you what. Been working cattle drives and ranch jobs for the past few years. I am good with horses and decent with a gun. Not much more to it than that. I think there is a great deal more to it, Lily said gently. You are the kind of man who helps strangers in alleys and keeps watch all night so they can sleep safely. That says more about who you are than any list of jobs or places. Owen felt that uncomfortable warmth in his chest again. We should probably call each other by our given names if we are going to be breaking into buildings together. Owen. You can call me Owen. Lily, she said, though they both already knew it. "And thank you, Owen, for everything." As darkness finally fell over Fort Worth, they made their preparations. Owen checked his gun again, made sure the lantern had enough oil. Lily tied her hair back securely and put on the coat Martha had sent, its dark color better for moving unseen in the night. They waited until the church clock struck 9, then slipped out into the darkness. The freight yard was on the eastern edge of town, a sprawling collection of warehouses and corrals that had grown substantially under Samuel and Jacob's management. They approached carefully, staying in the shadows, watching for any sign of guards or late workers. The main office building was dark, but Owen spotted a light in one of the smaller structures, probably a night watchman making his rounds. "We need to wait for him to move to a different area before we head for the old office," Owen whispered. They crouched behind a stack of crates, watching the lantern light move through the freight yard. The watchman seemed to be doing a circuit of the perimeter, checking locks and making sure everything was secure. It took nearly 20 minutes for him to work his way to the far side of the property. "Now," Owen said, and they moved quickly across the open ground to the old office building. The structure was weathered and dark, its windows boarded up. Lily led the way around to the side where a slanted cellar door sat at ground level. Owen expected it to be locked, but when he pulled on the handle, it opened with a rusty creak that made them both freeze. They waited, listening for any sign that the noise had attracted attention, but the night remained quiet except for the distant sounds of Fort Worth's evening activities. Owen lit the lantern, keeping the light low, and they descended the narrow stairs into the cellar. The smell hit them immediately, the unmistakable sweet, sick odor of death. Lily made a small sound of distress, and Owen put a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You do not have to come down here," he said quietly. "I can check. No, I need to see, I need to be sure." Lily's voice was strained but determined. Owen raised the lantern, casting yellow light across the cellar. It was a small space, mostly empty except for some broken furniture and old crates, and in the far corner, covered with a tarp, was an unmistakable shape. Lily made a sound like a wounded animal and started forward, but Owen caught her arm. "Let me check first. You should not have to see him like this." But Lily shook her head, tears already streaming down her face. "He is my brother. I will not abandon him again." Together, they approached the corner. Owen gently pulled back the tarp, and there was Samuel Townsend, exactly as Lily had described him, a man in his late 20s, well-dressed, with a wound in his chest that had clearly been made by a large knife. 4 days in a cool cellar had preserved him somewhat, and the cause of death was unmistakable. Lily sank to her knees beside her brother's body, sobs shaking her shoulders. "Oh, Samuel, I am so sorry. So sorry I ran. So sorry I could not save you." Owen gave her a moment, keeping watch on the cellar entrance while she said goodbye to her brother. His jaw was tight with anger at the casual cruelty of Jacob Mathers, killing a good man and hiding him away like garbage. This was not justice. This was not right. And Owen was going to make sure it got put right, no matter what it took. After several minutes, Lily composed herself and stood. Her face was streaked with tears, but her expression was hard as stone. "Let's go get the Reverend and the doctor. Let us bring so many witnesses that Jacob cannot explain this away." They recovered the body carefully and made their way back through the darkened freight yard. The watchman was on the far side of the property, and they slipped away undetected. Owen sent Lily to fetch Dr. Harrison while he went for Reverend Thomas. Within an hour, they had both men at the old church along with Samuel's body, which Owen had brought in a borrowed cart. Dr. Harrison examined the corpse by lantern light, his expression growing grimmer with each passing moment. This man was murdered without question. Single stab wound to the heart delivered with significant force. Death would have been fairly quick, but not instant. He would have known what was happening to him. The doctor looked at Lily with sympathy. "I am sorry for your loss, Miss Townsend, but you now have the evidence you need. No one can dispute this." Reverend Thomas stood pale and shaken beside the examining table. "We must take this to Marshal Crawford immediately. This cannot be ignored or dismissed." "Jacob will have an explanation ready," Lily said. "He always does." "Then we will not give him time to prepare it," Owen said. "Reverend Doctor, I need you to go to the Marshal right now tonight. Tell him what we found. Lily and I will wait here with Samuel's body. The Marshal can come verify the evidence himself." "What if Jacob has the Marshal in his pocket?" Lily asked. "What if Crawford tries to cover this up? Then we go over his head," Owen said. "There is a Texas Ranger station in Weatherford about 20 miles west. If the local law will not act, we take it to someone who will. But we need to give Crawford a chance to do the right thing first." Reverend Thomas nodded slowly. "Very well. I will fetch the Marshal." "But Mr. Quincy, if Jacob Mathers discovers what you have done, he will come after you. You understand that? Let him come," Owen said, his hand resting on his gun. "I am not as easy to kill as an unarmed man." After the Reverend and Doctor left, Owen and Lily were alone with Samuel's body. She sat beside her brother, holding his cold hand, speaking to him in soft tones about memories they had shared. Owen kept watch at the window, his eyes on the dark streets of Fort Worth. He knew what was coming. Jacob Mathers would not take this exposure lying down. There would be trouble and probably violence. Owen just had to make sure he was ready for it. It was nearly midnight when Marshal Crawford finally arrived, accompanied by Reverend Thomas and Dr. Harrison. The Marshal was a heavy-set man in his 50s with a thick mustache and a skeptical expression. He looked at Samuel's body, listened to Dr. Harrison's assessment, and then turned to Lily with hard eyes. "Miss Townsend, you have caused quite a lot of trouble with your wild accusations. This looks bad for Jacob Mathers. I will grant you that. But before I go arresting one of Fort Worth's most prominent citizens, I need to understand exactly what happened and when." Lily stood, facing the Marshal with her head held high despite her grief. "I told you what happened 4 days ago, Marshal. Jacob Mathers murdered my brother right in front of me. I witnessed it. Now you have Samuel's body as proof. What more do you need?" "I need to know how you knew where to find the body," Crawford said. "How did you know to look in Jacob's freight yard cellar?" "Because I knew Jacob had to hide Samuel quickly after I ran for help," Lily explained. "The cellar was the most logical place out of the way, cool, unlikely to be searched. We took a chance and we were right." Marshal Crawford's eyes shifted to Owen. "And who are you, Owen Quincy? I'm helping Miss Townsend seek justice for her brother. Are you family, legal representative?" "I am a friend who believes in doing the right thing," Owen said evenly. "Something that seems to be in short supply in this town." The Marshal's face reddened. "You watch your tone, stranger. I could arrest you for trespassing on private property, breaking and entering, disturbing a crime scene." "Then arrest me," Owen said. "But that does not change what we found or what it proves. Jacob Mathers is a murderer, and now you have evidence that even you cannot ignore." Reverend Thomas stepped forward. "Marshal Crawford, I have known you for many years. You are a good man, a fair man. Please do not let Jacob's money and influence blind you to the truth. Samuel Townsend was murdered, and his sister deserves justice." The Marshal was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with the situation. Finally, he sighed heavily. "I will bring Jacob in for questioning in the morning. We will get his side of the story, see if there is an innocent explanation for this body being on his property." "An innocent explanation?" Lily's voice rose with incredulity. My brother's murdered corpse is in his cellar, and you think there might be an innocent explanation. I think I need to follow proper procedure, Crawford said firmly. Jacob will be given a chance to defend himself. That is how the law works, Miss Townsend, whether you like it or not. Owen could see Lily starting to argue, could feel his own anger rising, but he forced himself to stay calm. Marshal, with all due respect, if you warn Jacob that we found the body, you give him time to run or to eliminate any other evidence that might exist. A better approach would be to arrest him tonight quietly, before he knows what is happening. I will not roust a man from his bed on charges that have not been proven, Crawford said stubbornly. Jacob Mathers deserves the same consideration as any other citizen of Fort Worth. He murdered my brother, Lily shouted, her composure finally cracking. He hunted me for 4 days like an animal. He deserves to hang, not consideration, the marshal's expression hardened. Miss Townsend, you need to control yourself. I understand you are upset, but screaming accusations does not help your case. I will handle this investigation properly by the book. Jacob will be brought in tomorrow morning for questioning. Until then, I suggest you stay out of sight and let the law do its job. After Crawford left, taking Samuel's body with him to be held as evidence, the 4 remaining people in the church stood in frustrated silence. Finally, Reverend Thomas spoke. He is going to warn Jacob. You realize that. Crawford may not be in Jacob's pocket, but he is afraid of him. He will send word that the body was found, give Jacob a chance to prepare his defense or flee. I know, Owen said grimly. Which means we need to be ready for whatever comes next. Dr. Harrison shook his head sadly. This is not how justice should work. That poor young man deserves better. He will get it, Lily said, her voice cold with determination. Whatever it takes, Jacob Mathers will pay for what he did. After the Reverend and Doctor left, Owen turned to Lily. You should rest. It has been a long night, and tomorrow might be even longer. But Lily was too agitated to sleep. She paced the church, her hands clenched into fists, her mind clearly churning. We should have grabbed Jacob ourselves. Brought him here at gunpoint, made him confess. That would make us kidnappers and criminals, Owen pointed out. We need to do this right, Lily. We need the law on our side, not against us. The law has been useless so far, I know, but we have proof now. We have witnesses who cannot be bought off. Dr. Harrison will not lie about how your brother died. Reverend Thomas will not let this be swept under the rug. We are building a case that even a corrupt marshal cannot ignore. Lily stopped pacing and turned to face him. In the dim lantern light, her face was a mask of grief and rage and something else, a dawning awareness that made Owen's heart beat faster. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Really? Not the noble reasons about helping people. I want to know why you, Owen Quincy, are risking your life for me and my brother. Owen met her gaze steadily. At first, it was because helping you was the right thing to do, because I could not walk past someone in need. But now. He paused, trying to find words for feelings he did not fully understand himself. Now it is because I cannot imagine leaving you. Because somewhere between that alley and this moment, you became important to me, more important than my own safety or comfort. Lily crossed the space between them in 3 quick steps. She reached up and cupped his face in her hands, her green eyes searching his. I barely know you, she whispered, but I feel like I have been waiting for you my entire life. Does that make any sense? No, Owen admitted. But I feel it too. When they kissed, it was like something inevitable finally falling into place. Owen wrapped his arms around Lily, pulling her close, feeling her slight frame against his chest. She tasted like tears and hope, and he felt something tight in his chest finally loosen. This was what he had been searching for in all his wandering, not a place, but a person. Not a job, but a purpose. Lily Townsend had walked into his life just over 24 hours ago, and somehow she had become the center of it. They finally broke apart, both breathing hard. Lily rested her forehead against his chest. "This is happening too fast," she said. "We should be sensible. We should take time to get to know each other properly." "Probably," Owen agreed. "But I have never been particularly sensible, and I suspect you are not either, or you would have given up days ago." Lily laughed, the sound surprising them both. "Fair point." She looked up at him, her expression serious again. "Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever comes of this mess with Jacob, I want you to know that meeting you was the only good thing to come from this nightmare. We are going to get through this," Owen promised. "Together. And then we are going to figure out what comes next." They stayed up the rest of the night, talking quietly about their lives, their hopes, their dreams. Owen learned that Lily had always wanted to see the ocean, that she loved reading novels, that her mother had taught her to play piano before the cholera took her. Lily learned that Owen had a gift for breaking horses, that he had taught himself to read using his sister's school books, that his dream was to own his own ranch someday. As dawn broke over Fort Worth, they were sitting close together on the old settee, Lily's head resting on Owen's shoulder. "We should probably prepare for trouble," Owen said reluctantly. "Probably," Lily agreed, but neither of them moved. They stayed like that, holding on to the peace and connection they had found until the sound of horses approaching the church forced them to their feet. Owen moved to the window, his hand on his gun, and felt his stomach drop. There were at least 6 riders, all armed, and leading them was a well-dressed man in his 40s who could only be Jacob Mathers. The man's face was twisted with rage as he dismounted and strode toward the church door. "Stay behind me," Owen ordered Lily, positioning himself between her and the entrance. The door slammed open, and Jacob Mathers stood there flanked by his men. Up close, Owen could see that he was a handsome man gone to seed, with cold eyes and a cruel mouth. "There you are," Jacob said, his voice dripping with false concern. "Poor dear Lily, we have all been so worried about you." "Stay away from me, you murderer," Lily spat. Jacob's mask of concern dropped, replaced by naked malice. "You should have kept running." "Coming back to Fort Worth, digging up Samuel's body, that was foolish. You cannot prove I killed him. You were hysterical, confused. For all anyone knows, you killed your own brother and have been trying to pin it on me out of guilt." "That is a lie," Lily shouted. "Prove it," Jacob said smugly. "Your word against mine, and I think we both know whose word will carry more weight in this town." His gaze shifted to Owen. "And you, the drifter who appeared out of nowhere and has been filling her head with ideas about justice. I do not know what your game is, but you picked the wrong person to help." "I picked exactly the right person," Owen said calmly. "And you are done, Mathers. Your crime has been exposed. The marshal has Samuel's body. There are witnesses who cannot be bought. It is over." Jacob laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "The marshal is in my office right now, listening to my explanation of how a vagrant must have broken into my freight yard and hidden a body there to frame me. By noon today, he will be putting out a warrant for your arrest, stranger. You and Lily both for trespassing, defiling a corpse, making false accusations." He smiled, showing too many teeth. "You are finished in Fort Worth, both of you." "Over my dead body," Owen said, his voice dropping to a dangerous level. "That can be arranged," Jacob said, and suddenly all 6 men were drawing their guns. Owen moved faster than thought, pulling Lily down behind the nearest pew as bullets started flying. He returned fire, his shots carefully aimed, and one of Jacob's men went down clutching his shoulder. The church erupted into chaos, splinters flying from the old wood, glass shattering. Owen kept himself between Lily and the shooters, methodically returning fire, but they were badly outnumbered and Owen knew it. He was a good shot, but not good enough to take down 6 armed men before one of them got lucky. He needed to even the odds, needed an advantage. His eyes fell on the back door of the church, the one that led out toward the cemetery. If they could get outside, use the gravestones for cover, they might have a chance. "When I say run, you head for that back door," Owen said to Lily, his voice barely audible over the gunfire. "Do not stop, do not look back, just run." "I am not leaving you," Lily protested. "You are not leaving me. I am right behind you, but we need to move now." Owen fired twice more, then grabbed Lily's hand. "Run!" They burst from behind the pew and sprinted for the back door. Owen felt a bullet graze his arm, hot and sharp, but he did not slow down. They crashed through the door into the early morning light just as more riders appeared, but these were not Jacob's men. Reverend Thomas had returned with reinforcements, and leading them was a stern-looking man with a badge that read Texas Ranger. "That is them," Jacob shouted from the church doorway. "They are the ones who trespassed on my property, the ones spreading lies about me." The ranger, a grizzled man in his 50s, held up a hand for silence. "I am Captain Daniel Brooks, Texas Rangers. I have been investigating Jacob Mathers for the past 6 months based on reports of illegal smuggling operations. When Reverend Thomas contacted me this morning with news of a murder, I came immediately." His hard gaze fixed on Jacob. "Put down your weapons, all of you. You are under arrest." For a moment, it looked like Jacob might fight. His men were still armed, and they outnumbered the Rangers and their temporary deputies. But Captain Brooks had the air of a man who would not be intimidated, and several of the townspeople who had gathered at the sound of gunfire were openly supporting the Rangers. Slowly, reluctantly, Jacob's men lowered their weapons. "This is ridiculous," Jacob blustered. "I am a respected businessman. You cannot arrest me on the word of a hysterical woman and some drifter. I am arresting you on suspicion of murder, smuggling, and attempted murder of witnesses," Captain Brooks said flatly. "And I have enough evidence from my own investigation to see you hang, even without Miss Townsend's testimony. But her testimony and the body of her brother will make this case airtight." As the Rangers took Jacob and his men into custody, Owen sagged with relief. His wounded arm was bleeding steadily, but the injury was superficial. Lily was safe. Samuel's murder would be avenged. It was over. Dr. Harrison appeared to tend to Owen's wound, clicking his tongue disapprovingly. "You are lucky. Another inch to the right, and that bullet would have hit the bone." He bandaged the injury efficiently while Lily hovered anxiously nearby. Captain Brooks approached them once the prisoners had been secured. "Miss Townsend, Mr. Quincy, I am going to need full statements from both of you. But first, I want to thank you. Jacob Mathers has been operating his smuggling ring for years, always staying just out of reach of the law. Your brother's murder was a mistake on his part, a crime of passion that left evidence we can use. Because of you, we can finally put him away for good." Over the next few days, Fort Worth buzzed with the scandal of Jacob Mathers's arrest. His freight business was seized by the Rangers and found to contain extensive evidence of smuggling operations. His men turned on him quickly when offered lighter sentences, and the full scope of his criminal enterprise came to light. Samuel Townsend was given a proper funeral, attended by what seemed like half the town. People came forward to tell Lily how much her brother had helped them, how much he had been respected. It did not bring Samuel back, but it gave Lily some measure of peace. Marshal Crawford resigned in disgrace after it came out that he had been taking payments from Jacob to look the other way on certain irregularities. A new marshal was appointed, a fair man who made it clear that Fort Worth would no longer tolerate corruption. Through it all, Owen stayed by Lily's side. He stood with her at Samuel's funeral. He testified at Jacob's trial, which ended in a guilty verdict and a sentence of hanging. He helped her sort through Samuel's affairs and make decisions about the future of the freight business, which legally now belonged to her as Samuel's only heir. "I do not know the first thing about running a freight company," Lily admitted one evening as they sat together in the old church, which had become their refuge. "Samuel was the businessman. I just helped with the book sometimes." "So hire someone to manage it for you," Owen suggested. "Or sell it. Use the money to do whatever you want with your life." Lily was quiet for a moment. "What do you want, Owen? You have been helping me for weeks now, but you have not said what your plans are. Are you going to keep drifting, looking for ranch work?" Owen took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "I want to stay here with you if you will have me." "Just like that. You are ready to give up your freedom, settle down in Fort Worth. I have been free for years, Lily, and you know what I learned. Freedom is not worth much if you are alone. These past weeks with you, fighting for something that matters alongside someone I care about, that has felt more real, more right, than anything I have done in a long time." Owen cupped her face gently. "I am in love with you. I think I started falling the moment I saw you in that alley, and every day since has just made me more certain. So yes, I am ready to stay, to build a life with you, if that is what you want too." Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks, but she was smiling. "I love you too. I know it has not been very long, but nothing about our relationship has been conventional. You saved my life, Owen. You stood guard while I rested. You fought for me and my brother when no one else would. How could I not love you?" They married 6 weeks later in the new church, with Reverend Thomas performing the ceremony. Martha Cooper stood as Lily's witness, having become a close friend. Captain Brooks attended, along with Dr. Harrison and what seemed like half of Fort Worth. The town had embraced their story, the tale of the drifter who helped the grieving sister, find justice becoming the stuff of local legend. Owen used his savings to buy a small ranch just outside Fort Worth, a modest spread with good grazing land and a creek running through it. Lily sold the freight business to a consortium of local merchants who had been Samuel's friends, keeping only enough involvement to honor her brother's memory. Together, they began building the life they had both dreamed of. The first year of their marriage was full of hard work and joy in equal measure. Owen proved to have a gift for ranching, building up a small herd of cattle and breaking horses for sale. Lily discovered she loved the ranch life, tending a large garden and managing the household with efficiency and grace. They worked side by side, learning each other's rhythms, building something solid and lasting. Their first child was born in the spring of 1880, a healthy baby boy they named Samuel Owen Quincy in honor of Lily's brother and his father. Owen held his son with trembling hands, overcome by the weight of responsibility and love. "I promise I will be a better father than I had," he whispered to the sleeping infant. "You will be a wonderful father," Lily said from the bed, exhausted but radiant. "You already are." Little Samuel was followed by a daughter 2 years later whom they named Grace Rose. She had her mother's green eyes and her father's stubbornness, a combination that promised lively years ahead. Owen expanded the ranch to provide for his growing family, and Lily created a home filled with love and laughter. They became pillars of the Fort Worth community. Owen was known as a fair dealer in cattle and horses, a man whose word was his bond. Lily volunteered at the church, helping new families settle in town, never forgetting what it felt like to be alone and afraid. They hosted gatherings at their ranch, filling their home with friends and neighbors, building connections that would last generations. On quiet evenings, after the children were asleep, Owen and Lily would sit together on the porch and watch the Texas sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "Do you ever regret it?" Lily asked one such evening, her head resting on his shoulder. "Giving up your freedom to settle down here with me?" Owen pressed a kiss to her hair. "Not for one single moment. You and our children are the best thing that ever happened to me. This life we built together, it is everything I never knew I wanted." "I still have nightmares sometimes," Lily admitted. "About that night, about Samuel, about Jacob coming after me." "I know." Owen held her closer. "But you are safe now, we are safe. And we have built something good from something terrible. That is all anyone can do." The years rolled on, bringing more children, another boy and 2 more girls, until the Quincy ranch rang with the sounds of 5 children laughing and playing. Owen taught his sons to ride and rope, passed on his skills with horses and cattle. Lily taught her daughters to read and keep house, but also to be strong and independent, to never rely solely on a man for their survival. All their children learned the story of how their parents met, the tale of courage and justice that had brought them together. Samuel grew into a fine young man, steady and honorable like his namesake uncle. He took over much of the ranch operations as Owen grew older, allowing his father to slow down and enjoy his grandchildren. Grace married a teacher from Fort Worth and opened a school on the edge of town, educating children who might otherwise have gone without learning. The younger children followed their own paths, but all remained close to the ranch, close to the family that Owen and Lily had created. On their 25th wedding anniversary, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Children and grandchildren filled every room, spilling out onto the porch and into the yard. There was music and dancing, food and laughter, the warmth of family ties that had grown strong over the decades. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Owen and Lily walked out to the spot where they could see both the ranch they had built and the lights of Fort Worth in the distance. 25 years, Lily marveled. "It feels like yesterday that you found me in that alley, terrified and exhausted. And it feels like we have been together forever." "Both are true," Owen said, his hair now silver but his eyes still the same steady blue that had captivated Lily from the start. "You are still the bravest person I have ever known, and I am still the luckiest man alive to have found you." "We found each other," Lily corrected, "right when we both needed it most." She looked up at the stars scattered across the vast Texas sky. "Samuel would be proud, I think, of what we built, of the family we created, of the life we chose to live." "He is proud," Owen said with certainty. "Wherever he is, he knows his sister is happy and safe and loved. That is all he would have wanted." They stood there together, 2 people who had started as strangers and become partners in every sense of the word. Their love story had begun in tragedy and fear, but it had grown into something beautiful and lasting. The cowboy who had stood guard while she rested had become her husband, her partner, the father of her children, and the love of her life. And the frightened woman he had found in that alley had become his anchor, his home, his reason for every choice he made. As they walked back to the house they had built together, hand in hand under the stars, neither of them looked back with regret. They had lived fully, loved deeply, and created something that would outlast them both, a family, a legacy, a testament to the power of courage and compassion, and choosing to help when help was needed most. The old church in Fort Worth where they had sheltered that first night still stood, though it was used now for storage and community meetings. Sometimes, when Owen and Lily were in town, they would walk past it and remember those desperate early days. They remembered the fear, the exhaustion, the moment when Lily had finally been able to rest because someone stood guard over her safety. They remembered falling in love in the midst of chaos, finding hope when everything seemed hopeless. And they were grateful, every single day, for the chance encounter in an alley that had changed both their lives forever. Owen Quincy had been looking for work when he rode into Fort Worth in the summer of 1878. What he found instead was purpose, love, and a home that would last the rest of his days. And Lily Townsend, who had lost everything and been hunted like an animal, found safety, justice, and a love that healed the deepest wounds of her heart. Their children would tell the story to their own children, and those children to theirs, passing down the tale of the cowboy and the frightened woman, of standing guard and finding rest, of justice served and love discovered. It became part of the family history, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, good people can find each other and create something beautiful from the ashes of tragedy. Owen and Lily lived long lives, growing old together on their ranch, surrounded by the family they had created and the community they had served. When Owen finally passed away at the age of 78, he died peacefully in his sleep with Lily holding his hand, exactly as he would have wanted. Lily followed him 2 years later, her heart simply giving out one quiet morning. They were buried side by side in the Fort Worth cemetery, their headstones marking them as beloved parents, grandparents, and pillars of the community. But more than that, they were remembered as proof that love could be found in the most unlikely circumstances, that courage and compassion could overcome any obstacle, and that sometimes the best things in life came from choosing to help a stranger in need. The ranch they built continued under their children's management, a testament to their hard work and vision. The family they created continued to grow and thrive, each generation carrying forward the values Owen and Lily had instilled. And sometimes, on quiet summer evenings when the Texas wind blew just right, people claimed they could feel the presence of the cowboy and his bride, still watching over the land they had loved, still standing guard over the family they had created, still together as they had been from that first night when a desperate woman found refuge and a wandering cowboy found his home. Their love story had become legend, but more than that, it had become a legacy, a reminder that the best things in life are worth fighting for, that true love can bloom in the darkest times, and that sometimes all it takes to change everything is one person willing to stand guard while another finally rests. The end of their lives was not an ending but a continuation, their love living on in every descendant who carried their names, every value they had passed down, every story told about the summer of 1878 when a cowboy and a frightened woman met and changed each other's lives forever. Fort Worth grew and changed around the ranch, transforming from a frontier cattle town into a modern city. But the Quincy Ranch remained, a piece of history preserved, a monument to what two people could build when they chose love over fear, partnership over solitude, and courage over comfort. And so the story concluded not with an ending but with a legacy, not with goodbye but with forever, not with separation but with a love that transcended even death itself. Owen and Lily Quincy had lived well, loved deeply, and left behind something far more valuable than gold or land. They left behind proof that one moment of compassion, one choice to help, one night of standing guard could change everything, could create ripples that would extend through generations, could turn tragedy into triumph and fear into love everlasting.